Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, Former Farm Kid channel, back with you, giving you an update on the, well, I would love to call it the Nightmare Project. I'm just in the process of physically taking this hydrostatic unit out of my 2017 320E, John Deere 320E, which only has 317 hours on it. And would you believe that unit there is already leaking? And unfortunately, the way John Deere makes these units, the part that the strap is hooked to that way is all the braking mechanism. The motor is just this front part right here. And unfortunately, you can't take one without the other. When they rebuild these or reman them, do they take them apart? Yes. But for just a little leak that I have in my area, which is just outside Chicago, I have not been able to find anybody that can take the motor part apart, and it probably just needs new O-rings. It's just leaking oil. It works fine. And there's nothing wrong with this unit. So I'm paying for another one of these units plus another one of these units. That mechanism right there, it's a hydrostatic drive motor and brake. They don't, John Deere doesn't call it that, but that's what it is. But they call it the hydrostatic drive motor. It's one unit. When you look up the part number on this, it's one unit. They cannot separate them. When the mechanic pulls this machine up, he can get, he sees all the internal parts. But on the John Deere customer site, we can't see that because they won't sell it as individual units. So I don't know, screwy deal. So at any rate, here we are, hoses and hoses and hoses later. And by the way, I have a plug set ordered for this thing to plug all these ports up. But in the interim, these Loctite bags work pretty good. You can kind of cinch them down on the hoses and keep them as sterile as you possibly can. So the bad news is this unit would not come out with the pump still connected. And I have a high flow in this system, so I believe that adds a stack to the pump, which makes it longer. I don't think it would have mattered anyway, because it just literally cannot turn in this tight space here. With everything moved out in a way, it still could not turn. So how have I done it? Well, because the cab is right above you, even if you have a crane, that's not going to do you a whole lot of good. You could come in with a skid steer and a set of forks underneath here and put a winch on that. That would work. That would work well. But unfortunately, this is the only skid steer I have. So I had to go out and get a engine hoist. And this actually worked pretty good. It's a little short. I'm all the way up to the front of the machine here. I can't really move it forward any farther. It keeps hitting here. And you can only do so much to adjust this. So what I did was, this chain normally comes out underneath here. So I unhooked it and routed it out the front. They gave me another inch. And of course, if you start the lift at a higher angle, the geometry of the circle, the radius increases. Well, the radius doesn't increase, but the sweep moves that point of the lift closer to the machine. So that helped as well. So it was just long enough, maybe an inch in excess. So that worked out pretty good. The other mystery was, how in the world do you get the chains off that sprocket? It's a double sprocket. The one in, and I keep getting these confused. The one, which one did I take off first? I took off the big one, yeah. So this wheel is on the outside of this. You can't see it, it's up there. It's this drive gear right there. It's a double sheaved gear. Kind of hard to see that inside one, or the outside rather. So maybe guys that have actually changed the chain or changed the motor know this, but these have this casting has slots, so you have room to adjust it, tension the chain as the chain starts to stretch a little bit. But these slots are not nearly enough to give it enough movement to shove it back far enough to get the chain off the gear. So here's the secret. You need a bunch of blocks, and I've got them pushed away right now. Bunch of blocks underneath here to hold this up, and that you can slide it out. You can slide this casting out to the end of these studs, and then you are able to move it about another 2 inches, maybe 3, and it will actually stay there as long as you have it blocked up on this end and on the inside. And by the way, this is not all that heavy. I've literally done all this by myself. My nephew came out just to help me assess it 1 hour, but it was, let's see, what am I into now? 2, it's now just short of noon. It's been 2.5 days to get it out. So once you get it slid out a little bit, you have plenty of room to shove it that way, and then you can pop that chain right off and do the same back here as well. The lawn chain is actually a little easier to get out. So that mystery was solved. And by the grace of God, I discovered that because I had no clue. I just accidentally pulled it out too far, and it kind of rolled in a little bit more. When I looked down behind here, the shaft is very thin, the hole is bigger, so that gear, it appears to me, floats on this shaft. So you don't want to pull it out too far this way, or you run the danger of sliding that gear off this shaft, and then you would have to reach in behind it, and going into that way, that's a long reach, man. I don't know if you can do it as you slide it on. I don't know, and I don't think I would want to try it, to tell you the truth. And another issue, and I'm going to pull this out of here before I forget it. Another issue is the oil. There is just no way to stop all the oil from running. And here's what I'm talking about. When you put pans underneath your machine, you need some pretty good capacity. So here is what has worked pretty well. These are like $7 cement mixing buckets from Home Depot, and you can see this is all the oil that ran out that I caught underneath the machine. Those holes in the bottom of the frame are designed to do that, and I have lost a bunch more. It's sitting on my plywood now, and that was after draining this whole tank all the way down to beneath. It's not totally empty. You can't really see it in there. Not the outflow, but the return comes in the bottom actually, and the outflow goes out to the top. I might have that reversed. It kind of sounds backwards. It's these two hoses right here. So I got the oil level beneath there, and you saw the amount of oil in those tubs. That much more ran out. So I guess I didn't mention what a new one of these cost. A new one from John Deere, $7,600 plus. A reman one is $3,700. And boy, I tell you, very, very disappointing, because as you can see, this thing comes apart. It's got those cap screws every, I don't know, 2 o'clock or so. And you know, you wouldn't be messing with this part right here at all. But I'd be tempted to do it myself, because I mean, I am trading this in. So it's like, all right, if I screw it up, if I lose a part, they're going to take it all apart anyway. So I don't know. But I've never worked on a hydrostatic motor myself. And this being a high flow, 2-speed manual control, this unit is probably about as complicated as it gets. What's it got? It's got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Seems like there should be one more underneath there. I think it's rotated under. 5 ports on it. And the leak is, if you're looking at it this way, it's about 7 or 8 o'clock. And the troubleshooting on this to determine where the leak was, you know, I did it the best way I could. Kept cleaning it underneath and feeling, running it. It only leaked when the drive motors were engaged. It could sit there at idle with the parking brake off, and we let it run for a while. Feel back underneath there for all the lines underneath the motor, which is hard to get to. But with a bare hand, you can tell if it's oily or not. When you pull your hand out, it's either going to be dry or oily. And all the lines, no leakage on the lines. You know, holy cow, could you imagine taking this out, paying $3,700 plus tax, plus what all this oil is going to cost? Ugh. Plus all the gaskets and O-rings that got to be replaced. I mean, it's going to run. It's going to run close to, I'm going to say $4,400. But do all that work and determine it's a line. You know, so I have looked at them the best I can. The ones that ran underneath the machine, at least the solid ones, I have out. I've inspected it. It's inside the garage. And once I get it out, I'm going to check one more that was underneath that I could not really get to. But so that's the update for now. Going in is not going to be too bad with a pump off now. But you know, the challenge will be there's no like lineup. I forget what you call those studs. They go in a hole so it lines all your bolt holes up. There's really none of that going on here. You just got to line the doggone thing up with all the holes, and they're, you know, a little irregular as you look at the hole pattern here. I'm not sure. I mean, there were bolts on both of these holes here, and so make sure I'm not got a washer there. And that unit, this unit is supposed to have a gasket. The diagram shows a gasket, but I don't see any gasket on that. So, at any rate, that's kind of the update, and I'll maybe try to get a shot once we get the new one in, but I'm not sure how long it's going to take. Usually takes them a couple days. All right, guys, so hopefully another couple days, whenever, however, we'll get her back together. Thanks for watching, and stand by for the next part.